President Trump says he got a nice letter from Kim Jong-un this week. More friendly talk between the two leaders as North Korea sends back the remains of American soldiers who died in the Korean War. No let-up in the heat here in Korea. We're looking at 38 degrees in the capital. Last night, it didn't even get below 30. The government says it's ready for a spike in energy demand as homes and businesses try to stay cool. And in Zimbabwe, Emerson Mnangagwa, the incumbent leader, wins the first presidential election since Robert Mugabe was ousted last year. The opposition says the vote was rigged and is claiming victory for their candidate. President Trump received a letter from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un this week, coinciding with the return of potentially dozens of America's war dead from the North. So the two leaders' now cordial relationship continues, and the White House says the administration is open to a second Kim-Trump summit. Lee Nak-yon reports.
The White House on Thursday confirmed that U.S. President Donald Trump received a letter from North Korean leader Kim Jong-un earlier this week. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders confirmed the news of the letter, adding that the ongoing correspondence between the two leaders is aimed at following up on their meeting in Singapore and advancing the commitments made in their joint statement back in June.
He did receive a letter. I believe he received it on August 1st. We have responded to Chairman Kim's letter. The president has, and that letter will be delivered shortly. Beyond that, I can't get into any further details. I can say that the letters addressed their commitment from their joint statement, and that was made at the Singapore summit, and they're going to continue working together towards complete and total denuclearization.
This comes as the U.S. leader mentioned the letter in a tweet earlier Thursday, thanking Kim for the, quote, nice letter. Trump also thanked the North Korean leader for sending home the remains of the American soldiers killed during the Korean War, and added that he looks forward to seeing him soon. Last Friday, coinciding with the anniversary of the signing of Armistice Agreement, North Korea returned the remains of 55 American soldiers. While it's hoped that the repatriation will build momentum toward North Korea's nuclear disarmament, many say the progress towards securing a firm commitment from Pyongyang has been slow. Meanwhile, the U.S. says it is open to discussions about a second meeting between Trump and Kim, although nothing has been planned yet. In a regular press briefing on Thursday, the White House press secretary said a second meeting has not been currently locked in or finalized, but added that the White House is open to that discussion. Sanders also reaffirmed the U.S.'s firm commitment on the UN sanctions on North Korea, while mentioning that Trump will not be satisfied until a complete denuclearization. Trump has previously said that he would be open to inviting Kim to Washington, while there's also talk of a possible meeting on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in September. Lee Nak-yon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, more diplomats are arriving in Singapore today for the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting. This morning, North Korea's Foreign Minister Lee Yong-ho also arrived. We'll have more on his activities later in the day, but in the meantime, South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa continued holding bilateral talks on Thursday with her counterparts. Our Foreign Ministry correspondent Lee Ji-won reports from Singapore.
Having spent the day before with her counterparts from Southeast Asia, South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa held bilateral talks with Northeast Asian foreign ministers on Thursday. Minister Kang started the day's meetings with Russia's Sergei Lavrov in the late afternoon. Unlike what many had expected, they did not focus on North Korea's denuclearization, but more on how the two Koreas and Russia can cooperate on economic issues. But noting how not much progress can be made due to international sanctions on North Korea, the two diplomats simply reviewed the joint research on gas and railway projects. Minister Kang then had talks with Japanese Foreign Minister Taro Kono. The two once again agreed that economic sanctions on North Korea must remain in place until concrete steps are taken by Pyongyang. The two also exchanged views on bilateral issues, including Japan's sexual enslavement of Korean women during World War II. Minister Kang explained that the South Korean government had recently allocated a budget to replace Tokyo's roughly $9 million fund for the sex slavery victims, and Minister Kono requested that South Korea handle the matter well, but did not further elaborate. Kang's meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi was postponed to Friday due to a delay in the Chinese side's schedule. Wang, during a press conference late Thursday, said he supports a declaration of the end of the Korean War.
We don't think that any country in today's world, the United States included, wants to see war breaking out again. Thus, the declaration of the end of the Korean War is in keeping with the trend of our time and reflects the aspiration of people of all countries, including the two countries on the Korean Peninsula.
Answering a reporter's question on lifting economic sanctions on Pyongyang, Wang said that it obviously needs to be reconsidered along with the progress made in Pyongyang's denuclearization. South Korea's top diplomat will try to reschedule her meeting with the Chinese foreign minister for Friday, in between her other meetings with counterparts from Southeast Asia. Lee Nak-yon, Arirang News, Singapore.
Russia is reportedly letting in thousands of North Korean workers on brand new work permits, actions U.S. officials say potentially violate UN sanctions. The Wall Street Journal reported Thursday that since last September, when the sanctions took effect, Russia has registered more than 10,000 North Korean workers, and at least 700 new work permits have been issued this year. The UN Security Council barred governments from issuing any more work permits to North Koreans, although some existing contracts were allowed to continue. The sanctions do contain some narrow exceptions, so officials are investigating whether Russia is breaking the rules. Today, 15 officials from the South Korean firm Hyundai Asan are visiting North Korea's Mount Kumgang, where they used to run tours for South Koreans. They're going to pay tribute to the firm's late former chairman, Chung Mong-hun, who is recognized by the North as a figure who stood at the forefront of inter-Korean economic cooperation. Hyundai Asan spearheaded both the tours to Mount Kumgang and the inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex until both of those projects in their turn broke down. Pyongyang's been complaining about Seoul enforcing international sanctions on it and has urged Seoul to resume the tours and the factory park. A key question is whether that will be brought up by the North with the officials from Hyundai. If you're in Korea, be careful out there today in the heat. We're going to be in the upper 30s again across most of the country. The same goes for this weekend, and still no rain in the forecast. As our Won Jung-hwan reports, this heat wave has proven extremely dangerous.
It looks like it's going to stay extremely hot in Seoul and other parts of the country. Heat wave warnings are in effect across almost the entire nation. In Seoul on Thursday, it hit 37.5 Celsius, down 2.1 degrees from the record-breaking day before, when it soared to its highest in 111 years. Forecasters say the temperature dipped because of more clouds in the sky, which reduced the amount of sunshine. According to meteorologists, high atmospheric pressure from Tibet and prolonged dryness have contributed to the extremely hot weather. And warm, dry air blown down from the eastern Tibet mountains has pushed up temperatures in the western and inland region, including the capital. The nights aren't much cooler either, with some parts of the country experiencing super tropical nights, where the temperature stays above 30 degrees Celsius all night. There were several incidents caused by the heat wave. In one incident, a KTX train traveling from Hangshin Station on Wednesday afternoon was without air conditioning for over an hour after the system stopped working in 10 train carriages.
The crowd all gathered in some carriage where the air conditioning was working. But to be honest, it was like a train carrying refugees, children crying and screaming.
According to the data from the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 2,200 people have been hospitalized with heat stroke or heat exhaustion, and 28 people have died from heat-related illnesses since mid-May. The heat wave hit after the rainy season ended on July 11th, and it's forecast to continue through early August. The number of people suffering from heat-related health conditions is expected to skyrocket this year to well over 20,000. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
Now, usually when you look at the map, one of the hottest places in the country is Daegu. That's been true this year as well. But the city knows this and is prepared. Our Kang Hyung-woo went down to Daegu to check out the proactive ways they're helping people cool down.
Some call it Daefrica, a reference to the Sahara-like temperatures seen this summer in South Korea's fourth largest city. Daegu saw its highest temperature this summer so far on July 27th at 39.2 degrees Celsius. This fried egg sculpture here gives you a sense of how hot it gets in Daegu. So to deal with the extreme heat wave, the city has come up with a number of countermeasures. In 20 places around the city, officials have installed machines that spray cool mist. They're on from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., spraying mist for 25 minutes every half an hour. Daegu also has opened up its ice rink to the public so anyone can come and enjoy the cool air from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Another way the city is trying to help is by giving out free bottles of cold water at 22 places that get a lot of foot traffic. They're giving out about 8,500 bottles every day.
To get over this unprecedented heat wave, it's important to stay cool and drink water. So by giving out cold water for free, we think this will help people stay hydrated.
It's only the beginning of August, and it looks like this heat will last for a while, but the people of Daefrica are pulling together to stay cool. Kang-young, Arirang News, Daegu.
Naturally, homes and businesses have been running the air conditioning pretty high the past couple of weeks, but that's put strain on the power grid. The Prime Minister has urged the government to make sure electricity supplies are stable, and according to his office, at least there will be more than enough power when demand peaks this month. Cha Sang-mi explains.
Prime Minister Lee Nak-yon, in a meeting Thursday, called on the relevant authorities to make sure electricity supplies are stable so that homes and businesses can stay cool, something that could save lives.
Last month, the government forecast this summer's maximum power demand to 88.3 million kilowatts, but the actual demand has surpassed 90 million. The Energy Ministry's forecasting model proved to be mostly precise, but the heat has been unexpectedly severe and prolonged.
The Prime Minister's Secretariat said peak power demand last month surpassed 92.4 million kilowatts, more than was expected. But he also said the government has now secured 173 million kilowatts of power capacity in preparation for demand to peak in the second and third weeks of August. And they're not letting their guard down. They've also got another 6.8 as backup. For more dependable management of the electricity supply, the Prime Minister also called for the launch of a task force consisting of civilian experts who would look out for unexpected situations and manage risks. He called on other ministries and authorities to make doubly sure that power supplies are stable because when people get back from vacation in the coming days, demand is going to surge again. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
South Korea's foreign exchange reserves surpassed $402 billion in July in a boost to the country's financial stability. The Bank of Korea said Friday the country's reserves added nearly $2.2 billion from the month before. The central bank said the surge was largely due to the weaker U.S. dollar, which in turn raised the value of the BOK's assets held in other currencies. It was in June that reserves surpassed the $400 billion mark for the first time. And in trade, South Korea remained strongly in the black for June, though less so compared to May. The current account surplus came to $7.4 billion. That's down more than $1 billion from the month before, but up almost $400 million from a year earlier. The surplus in goods was also down on month, but it rose on year to $10 billion, thanks to demand for semiconductors. Korea continues to run a deficit in services, and that widened from May. The services deficit came to $2.45 billion. For the first half of this year, in total, the current account surplus comes to $29.6 billion, down nearly 17% from the first half last year and the lowest figure in 6 years. After much deliberation, the Korean government has finalized next year's minimum wage, raising it by over 10%, despite concerns from local employers. The Ministry of Employment and Labor says it's decided to raise the minimum wage by 10.9% to about $7.40 an hour for next year, up from the current $6.70. The new minimum wage works out to just over $1,500 a month based on a 40-hour work week. The ministry says it will apply to all the nation's industries. The move is expected to cause more backlash from businesses and employers who've argued against higher labor costs. The minimum wage had already been increased for this year by 16.4%. These days, almost everybody buys at least some stuff online, but now data show most online shopping isn't even done on a computer, but on mobile devices. Some of the biggest gains in Korea have been seen in food delivery, and people in other countries too are using their mobiles to buy Korean products. Hong Yoo has this report.
Mobile shopping is now the most actively form of online shopping. Purchases made using the internet and mobile devices such as smartphones and tablet PCs represented 61.8% of all online shopping for the second quarter of 2018. That is the highest number ever since the government has begun collecting data of online shopping since January 2003. According to Statistics Korea, money used on online shopping increased by 21.5% compared to the same quarter of last year. And within that increase, money used in mobile shopping increased by 32.9%. Mobile food delivery alone made more than $800 million due to the rapid growth of mobile food delivery services by 88% compared to last year's second quarter. The increase was also reflected in the increase of foreign buyers using Korean online shopping platforms. Chinese customers once again took the lead among foreign buyers, with Japan and ASEAN bloc taking second and third places respectively. Items that foreigners were more interested in buying were cosmetics, apparels, and electric devices. Hong Yoo, Arirang News.
Zimbabwe's election commission has declared incumbent leader Emmerson Mnangagwa as the winner of the country's first presidential election post-Robert Mugabe. For more on this and other stories from around the world, we turn to our Oh Soo-young at the News Center. Soo-young, it looks like Zimbabwe's ruling party will hold on to power, but the opposition is claiming fraud, and really, it was a close race, wasn't it?
That's right, Devon. Officials say President Mnangagwa won with a 50.8% of the vote, while his main opponent, Nelson Chamisa, picked up just over 44%. The results were announced in a televised statement on Thursday, a day after 6 people died in violent clashes between civilians and security forces. Opposition supporters were protesting what they saw as a rigged general election, where the ruling ZANU-PF party claimed a 2/3 majority of the seats in parliament. The main opposition party, Movement for Democratic Change, had already rejected the outcome of the presidential vote days before it was announced and actually claimed that Chamisa was the winner. Party chairman Morgan Chamichi has in fact vowed to challenge Mnangagwa's win through the courts. The Southern African nation held its first presidential and general election since its long-serving ruler Robert Mugabe was ousted from office last year. Many have hoped that the watershed vote would lead to progress in democracy and economic growth for the country. Pope Francis has changed the official stance of the Catholic Church to oppose the death penalty under all circumstances. The Vatican said Thursday that its policy on capital punishment has been revised to reflect the changing times. The Catholic Church's official doctrine had previously deemed the death penalty permissible in cases where human lives had to be defended against an unjust aggressor. Now, with the change, the Vatican regards the death penalty unacceptable in all cases, as it attacks a person's inherent dignity, and the Church now also endorses the abolition of the practice all around the world. Apple has become the world's first trillion-dollar company. The IT giant's market cap hit $1 trillion on Thursday when its stock price closed at an all-time high of $207.39 US. The figure was up by roughly 3% from the day before, and that boost is largely attributed to the US firm's stronger-than-expected second quarter earnings report. And with this feat, Apple streaks ahead of its Silicon Valley rivals Amazon and Microsoft to hit the $1 trillion mark. Apple shares have jumped more than 1,010% since the launch of the first iPhone 11 years ago and have increased by nearly a third over the past year. 2 world chess masters held a rather unusual match in Georgia this week, facing off with glasses of wine instead of the traditional black and white pieces. The world's first female chess grandmaster, Nona Gaprindashvili, and former European champion Surab Azmeh-Parashvili sat down on Tuesday over the chessboard with glasses of red and white wine.
Legendary Nona Gaprindashvili played chess match with me, but the original match was the point that we play with the glasses with Georgian wine, white and red wine. And you know that Georgia is well-known country. It's a homeland of the winery wine, and we are very proud about this.
The match finished in a draw, and both players celebrated Georgia's age-old wine tradition ahead of an annual World Chess Olympiad, which will be held in the country's coastal town of Batumi from next month.
Good morning. We're not only having record-breaking highs, but the morning lows are unbearably hot too. Seoul had another super tropical night overnight, getting no lower than 30.4 degrees Celsius this morning. And that's the highest morning temperatures in Seoul since weather records began back in 1907. And temperatures will rise rapidly along with blazing sunshine. So brace yourselves for another very steamy day today. And Beijing and Tokyo are also having sweltering heat. And highs in Korea will range from the mid to upper 30s, while strong sunshine will boost UV rays to very high levels this afternoon as well. And for a closer look at today's daily highs, Seoul, Daejeon, Gyeongju, Daegu will be at 38 degrees Celsius. Busan and Jeju will get up to 34 and 33 degrees respectively. Temperatures will drop a bit next week, while next Tuesday will be Ipchu, the beginning of autumn according to the lunar calendar. But you know, we'll have to wait for a while to feel more like autumn. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And that does it for us at the News Center for this hour. Thank you for watching. Lots more coming your way, though, at 12 o'clock. Bye for now.
네, 조선시대 궁중요리가 준비되어 있습니다.
도착하시면 바로 드실 수 있으세요. 부드러움과 풍미를 가지고 있는 한우가 준비되어 있습니다.
건강한 한국식 디저트가 준비되어 있습니다.
술맛 진짜 좋습니다. This season on Arirang TV, we bring you a new current affairs program that will shed light on key issues making headlines in Korea and around the world. Our host sits down with experts to examine the possible causes and consequences of the week's topic. We also connect to a panel of specialists overseas and international journalists to add multiple perspectives on the discussion. Join us every week on The Point World Affairs.
Hello, I'm Kim and this is Globetrotters, where we bring you stories of
Korea in the world and the world in Korea. Globetrotters. Meet Koreans all over the world who are actively involved in their fields and communities.